So moved, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Adam, second.
Second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
She's muted.
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
He's muted.
Director Calandry,
John,
Director Yarosik,
Yes.
Director Perez,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
John, if you can hear us, we need a vote. And if you can't, call me.
Patty, I am on the line. I can go ahead and approve for John.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Now we're on item 4, public comments for non-agenda items. Is there any public comment for non-agenda items?
Chairman Perez, this is Julie Kyle.
Hi, Julie. How are you today?
Good morning. Galen and I just would like to ask the board to consider sending a letter of appreciation to the Board of Supervisors, Sheriff Villanueva, Congressman Garcia, and the City of Lancaster for their continued efforts to fight the water theft and illegal marijuana grows in the Antelope Valley. We don't want them to think that their work is going unnoticed.
Julie, we appreciate that. And what's the consensus of the board? It's not an action item, but I would be in favor of that.
Do we have to have it as an action, as an agenda item on the board agenda, or can we act on it today?
Greg, can we, by consensus, do a letter of appreciation to?
Well, it's not a noticed item of action, so I think we need to defer it 1 month and put it on the agenda.
Okay. And Patty, if you will put that on the agenda for us, that'd be great. Julie, thank you very much. Is there any other public comments for non-agenda items? Hearing none, there are no special presentations. That brings us to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is payment of bills through May 20th, 2022. Item B is treasurer's report.
recording in progress.
Hearing none, we'll move to item 8, Administrative Committee Report, and that's going to be Matt or Peter.
Yeah, good morning. This is Matt Knudsen. So the Administrative Committee met last Friday with Directors Ariki and Yarosik. As normal, we went through the payment of bills that was just approved by the board. We talked a little bit about the RFP process and the recommendation for today's discussion regarding the administrator. We also went through the replacement water plan that was submitted by the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association. That is also on the agenda, item number 13, that's going to be discussed today. And I think that, and also we got an update from Craig Parton on the enforcement action. So that's pretty much all we discussed, unless Directors Ariki or Jurasic would like to add anything.
No, I think you got it. Thanks, man.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
nothing that we won't cover in the agenda.
Great, thank you. Is there a question, comment? Hearing none, that'll take us to item number 9, administrative proposal ad hoc committee report. And that will be Matt,
Yeah, I can start us off on this discussion.
please.
So this item is to summarize what was discussed with the ad hoc committee of directors Calandry and McLaren. We met last week at the direction of the board from the last meeting, and the goal was to go through the proposals that the Watermaster received for the administrator position and come up with a short list of candidates to bring back to this board today for consideration of moving forward for interview. So I think I'll start with just a little background and to refresh everybody's memory on the process we went through to get to today. So staff had worked on preparing a request for proposal. That draft RFP was presented to the advisory committee, embedded through that group a couple different occasions. It was also vetted with the full board. The board voted to approve the RFP. That was distributed to the agreed upon list of potential candidates, or distribution list, I should say. And that was sent out in late March of this year. We gave the RFP process just over a month for individuals or firms to submit a proposal to the Watermaster. That deadline was late April. We did receive pretty good response, I thought. We received a total of 7 proposals. It was a mix of individuals and consulting firms. A summary of those proposals is included in your board packet on page 29 of today's agenda. And so the committee, as I mentioned, was tasked to go through the 7 proposals and come up with a short list. Also in your board packet on page 28 is a brief staff report that summarizes the committee's recommendations. At the committee, we went through each of the proposals. I provide a summary of what the proposals included, where the individuals were from, their preliminary fee range, what their staffing plans were, as well as the transition plan to kind of wean off Avac and Palmdale staff. So the committee is recommending the following 4 candidates be brought into interview with the full Watermaster Board. Bondi Groundwater Consulting, Duke Engineering, the Hallmark Group, and Neil Weisenberger. So I'll kind of stop there and see if there's any questions at this point.
Are there any questions from anyone?
Just to refresh. Go ahead, John.
I don't know. It's not a question, but there's been some very several questions raised to me as to the validity of the RFP. I think we need to discuss that. I don't know if this is the time or if we should go forward and discuss it a little later.
I think now would be the time.
Yeah, John, go ahead. This
Okay.
first.
Okay. Well, here's I was on the committee to pick the 4 with Kathy McLaren Since then, I've had several phone calls brought to my attention from members of Exhibit 4, and I would refer to page 25 on our packet, number 7. The advisory committee unanimously felt that the RFP had missing key information, and they recommended that we reopen the bid process with a revised RFP, and it was a unanimous decision according to my notes. That being said, in good conscience, I think I personally choose to take the advice of the advisory committee. So I'm kind of jumping ship on Matt and everyone else. I apologize, but I've had enough input from my community that I think I have to make that position.
Can you give us a little bit more information, John, as far as exactly what in the RFP people felt was the problem? Because we did go over it at least twice, I think, in our meetings here, and everybody was discussing it, and it passed by a 5-0 vote. So,
is James Casson on the line right now?
James Jason, no, he's not present. So maybe John, this is Matt. So maybe we could start. You referred to page 25 of the agenda packet, which is the advisory committee report. Yeah. And under item number 7 regarding this topic, the advisory committee raised 2 points with the RFP. The first one is they felt the RFP does not specify or estimate how many hours a month are needed to fulfill administrative tasks, and it does not provide an estimated budget range. So if you may, I can kind of answer that question first.
Please, Matt.
So the RFP did provide information regarding the Watermaster's overall budget, also provided a link to the Watermaster website where we provide all of the detailed monthly invoicing, which includes the invoices from Avac and Palmdale to perform the administrator role. So I feel, and we also provided the annual budget for the last five or 6 years for the Watermaster. So I feel there was enough detail. If the applicants did a little research, they could kind of find that information on the website. Also in the RFP, we provided a pretty detailed list of the scope of work and duties. We provide a table that breaks down who currently performs each of those duties and the org chart. The second question raised by the advisory committee is the RFP does not specify a complete transition plan or a transition of Avac and Palmdale staff from the administrator role, and whether or not Avac or Palmdale will be available indefinitely. So in the RFP, we provided a statement. I'm trying to find it real quick. Okay, under task 5 of the RFP, we state that Avac and Palmdale have committed to providing support staff during the transition period. It is anticipated that the transition period could take up to 1 year to fully transition all duties and responsibilities. Existing staff will be available to answer questions and provide a historical perspective to the new administrator. So I feel we adequately provided that detail, specified up to 1 year, understanding that a proposer for this scope of work may have a different plan and staffing within their organization. So it could be less than a year, but we've committed to 1 year of transition.
Where?
Go ahead, John.
I was just saying, where were we reading from on that one? I have this in front of me. I have the RP, but I didn't. What number were you reading?
Yeah, it's right under task number 5. It's on the, looks like the 5th page.
Task 3. Do you think you made it clear to the bidders that Avac would not provide any staff past the training time?
So the way the RFP was written was that we would consider proposals with administrative support staff or just the administrator. So which, as you can tell, we did get a mix of individuals, some of whom just wanted to perform my role for the Watermaster and utilize the existing staff. And then others that have a full transition plan where they would come in and cover the whole administrative role with their own support staff. So I think we, as a group, we purposely wrote it that way to give us some options. And I think as we go through the interview process and sit down with these folks, we could discuss the pros and cons to the 2 options.
This is Jennifer Ryan. I'm at the advisory committee meeting, and if I could just maybe elaborate a little bit more on our concerns there.
Excuse me. Can you state your name so we can hear it? And then you need to be, let us know so I can address you and let you continue so everybody can hear you, please.
Sure. Can you hear? This is Jennifer Ryan. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I'm at the advisory committee meeting and just wanted to offer a few follow-up points just from where the advisory committee was coming, and any other members on, please feel free to jump in and, if I'm misstating anything, let me know. I think, with respect to the RFP and specifying the hours per month and the budget, there could have been more clarity there in the RFP itself versus asking applicants to rely what's online, because the RFP in a way leaves open that question. Well, here's our budget, and it doesn't specify that there's what has been done in the past, and the time spent on the past is what will be expected in the future. And I think we see some of that coming through the applications where they vary widely on how much time and money they estimate it will take to fulfill the administrator role. And then with respect to staff, again, I think the proposals that we received show that it wasn't clear how long staff would be, if Avac or Palmdale staff would be available to assist, because we do have varying proposals, with some saying they'd like to rely on Avac Palmdale water staff unless told otherwise, and then they'd have to find a plan for hiring someone. So that's just the follow-up clarification comments I wanted to add. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, I was going to ask Miss Ryan, who is she with?
Oh, yes, I'm the alternate for Stan Powell, the landowner representative, and representing City of Los Angeles World Airports.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is John Eucas, Mr. Perez.
ahead,
I agree with everything that Jennifer said.
Thank you, John. Any other discussion? John Calandry?
Yes.
At this point, again, we've been discussing the RFP and this process for several months now. Speaking as a representative from Avac, Avac has, and I'd say graciously provided support staff and administrator for several years. The board has made it clear that they want to move on with this process. So our resources can be used for the many projects that we have going now. Watermaster is running what I think all of us would say very well is the right time to start choosing a new administrator. So as an Avac representative, I would be opposed to continuing this process out, because to go out with another RFP would take another 2 or 3 meetings, and then we would be redoing where we're at right now. So I'd be more concerned, is it a question of the RFP, or is it a question that people are concerned about what the cost of a new administrator is going to be? And let's address, if that's the issue, let's address that issue, but let's not use the RFP as an excuse to delay the process. I think that's what my comments would be now.
Okay. Chairman, Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. So I read the proposals, and we met as an administrative committee, and we talked about this. What I thought we talked about it very thoughtfully. I've been in this business for a very long time, and I know it is very difficult to write a proposal that airtight. It's near impossible. Yes, there are variations in the cost. However, I see this as something you really can't pin down what the cost will be. A few of the people that proposed, they have a per hour rate. So if they end up working 30 hours, it's going to be different from if they only work 20 hours. Furthermore, I think the interviews that we're going to be conducting will shed some lights on this issue as well. So I believe I agree with Chairman Perez. I think giving the process that we've went through and giving what would it take to get it airtight, if at all, I don't think we can, but there are always going to be holes in an RFP like this. I think we should proceed forward and deliberate on, when we do the interviews, the cost and all that. And I think we're going to land at the right place, like we've done with the Watermaster engineer and with the attorney.
Thank you, Adam. Other comments?
It is always, it is always just concerning when we rely so much on that committee for their input, and if they didn't feel that the process was done correctly, or that there could have been something different. But I understand the need where we need to look at the time and everything. And would it necessarily change who we had to bid and who did bid? Because I think we have a good variety. And none of those things about the hour and the transition and things like that are written in stone yet. So we do have the opportunity really to look into those groups and hopefully be able to come to a consensus and find someone that the advisory committee would find suitable too.
Agree.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other comments?
And then I just
this
want
is
to
Derek.
Derek?
Go ahead, Derek.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody's feedback and John's comments, everyone's comments and concerns from the public as well as advisory. I guess my question is to the ad hoc is the determination of narrowing it down from 7 to 4. Was that predicated primarily on the cost structure or predicated upon their ability to meet the RFP as presented, which is the workload and the task? And I ask that because if it is because of the workload and the tasks, and we're concerned about the financials, then we can work through that. If we think this was a pure determination on cost, and then I have some concerns about how we address that.
Yes, it wasn't only
Kathy,
on
go ahead.
cost. Go ahead, John.
No, you go first, and I'll follow.
Kathy, go ahead, and John will follow.
So, I think there was a lot of different factors on why we picked the ones that we did. Cost on some of them was concerning, but it wasn't the major factor in who we chose. Some of their presentations and their different references led me to really feel strong that we should hear more from them, as well as being cognizant of a local person or a local firm that, if we can get what we need and it's a local person, or a local company, that's always good too. So we took in a lot of factors into our choices.
Thank you, Kathy. John, did you follow?
I would agree. And matter of fact, I'm going to, it was all over the board. This thing was like, you told somebody you needed shelter, and one guy put in a bid for a tent, and the other guy put in a tent for a skyscraper. So obviously, everybody was looking at this thing from a completely different set of lenses. And mine is not cost, because even the people in Exhibit 4 that have called me that tell me it should be done for a certain number, I don't agree with them. I think that this number is going to be higher than some people would like. I think it's going to be a lot lower than some people bid. I'm basing, I think, from the diversity of the bid, and I just think that there wasn't a complete understanding of what was required from the 7 different people. And my big thing is still, I'm going to stand on the fact that the advisory committee, who has been extremely competent throughout this whole process, have taken this stand. I'm not prepared to overrule them. I have in the past and gone against their wishes, but on this one, I'm not prepared to go against them.
So, John, what is your recommendation to do on the RFP to change it?
I think it's going to take very little. It's a good RFP for the most part. I think it needs to be spelled out really quickly that Avac is going to work up to this point, and then they will no longer be available for anything except blah, blah, blah. Go into a little more detail on what that is. Make sure that these people know they are going to be standing on their own 2 feet in a very short period of time. And it won't take a lot of changes. All the busy, heavy lifting has been done. It's going to take some fine-tuning. I think maybe send it off to the advisory committee, then send it to the board again for approval, and get it out. We're going to lose, I think if we do this quickly, we're going to lose a month. We could all step up. We could all have a special meetings. We could probably do it all and only lose a month.
John, I don't know how that's possible because
maybe 2 months.
Well, it will at a minimum be 3 months before we're right back at this point again, and we've already have 7 proposals where people have put in a lot of work on the proposals based upon the RFP. And again, John, the advisory committee saw the RFP at least, I believe,
twice.
Matt helped me twice.
Yeah.
To review it before it went out. It went out, and the advisory committee got to see who put in for it. And now we're at a point where we've had an ad hoc committee with you on it and started the selection process of who's going to be interviewed by the board. And now at this moment, they want to start the process over again. I don't think that's really a thoughtful way to go through this process. Now we're going to have to go back out, let everyone else put in proposals, and what is going to be the difference?
Well, for one thing, can we all look at that and say that there was a clear amount of hours stated that was really required to get an accurate bid?
John, it's just like the Watermaster engineer and the Watermaster attorney. When we interviewed them, we had no idea how many hours it was going to take to do everything. We budgeted, we brought them in, we had administrative staff do more when we thought, the expenses were getting too high. That's exactly what we're going to have to do with this. What you're asking us to do right now will not make any difference in the process, and will just delay it for several months. And again, the Avac board has been really patient. They have put staff here, as has Palmdale, for several years at a rate that was very good for this board. But I don't know how long the Avac board is going to continue to be patient and allow that to happen. They wanted this to be a seamless process where Matt could train the new person and then slowly go out of the process. We would keep staff involved until they were up and running, and then would do the same thing with staff. That's the goal of the Avac board. But there was no timetable on exactly when all that would happen, but we pushed this along and we've been very patient. So at this moment to, stop this process, it just doesn't seem reasonable. Everybody has had input, as they have on everything. And we're going to do these interviews in public. Everybody will have input. They can talk about costs. They can talk about their concerns. They can talk about if AVAC staff should be involved anymore and how long it's going to take. All that is negotiable within this process. It's not going to change if we put anything into a new RFP. None of that will change, John.
Yeah. And if I may add to what you said, Chairman Perez.
Thank you, Adam.
This is Adam. If you will make Director Clandry and the advisory committee comfortable, we can interview all the 7 and then have them talk to us about what just Director Perez or Chairman Perez cited, meaning this is what's going to be, what is your plan, what do you think it's going to take to do the job, what is your cost, and all those can be evaluated on equal basis for everybody, and a decision can be made as a public decision.
Cool.
Just a suggestion. I'm not saying we should do it that way. I'm just saying, go ahead.
Adam, I'd be open to that too. That would take a whole lot less time than what we're talking about now.
I agree. It's a compromise in my, if the issue is a fairness issue.
John, again, talking as a representative from the AVAC board, this is just a delay tactic. And I think the real issue is about cost. I understand that. I think we should focus in on that when we do the interviews and take care of what the advisory committee's concerns are. But in my mind, this looks like just a delay tactic to run it out so that, Matt continues to be the administrator for several more months. And that is something that the majority of the AVAC board is completely opposed to. We have major water projects coming up, water banking projects, and we need our resources here for the entire valley, for the landowners, for the public water providers. And if we don't have them, our agency's going to suffer. And I don't see what the benefit's going to be to landowners by delaying this process. What's going to end up happening is the possibility that the AVAC board will just say there's not going to be administrator here and, go off on your own for a while. I don't know if they do that. I would not support that, but that's a possibility. Let's do this process. Let's do it in a way that we can train the new administrator and get everybody's input. But at this point, it just seems like a delay tactic.
Well, I assure you it's not a delay tactic on my behalf, because I have all the respect in the world for Matt and Angel and Patty that are doing this job. I would get them off the hook tomorrow, simply because of my personal respect for them. This is about me representing the people in the landowners in Exhibit 4. That's all this is, and that's all that it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. Please finish.
No, I'm done.
Yeah.
John, are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Adam?
No, I was going to say, I have a lot of respect for the AVAC staff too, and Palmdale Water District for doing all this. And I understand, Director Clandry, where you're coming from. I don't think anyone is thinking that it's delay tactic on your part. But I think, in the interest of time, if there is a medium ground that we can all agree on to maybe partially satisfy the underlying issue here, if maybe lack of clarity or whatever that is. But honestly, from my perspective, I thought I didn't see those issues are major issues. I thought the proposals were very responsive. We can work with them. That's why I proposed maybe we interview all the 7 and give them, we can come up with questions that address those issues. And if they're willing, we can even, when we invite them to meet, we can say that, we're going to be discussing the transition team. So be prepared to discuss that if our attorney thinks that's appropriate. So, I'd be more inclined to look for a way out here as opposed to redoing this all over again.
Thank you, Adam.
This is Derek.
Derek, go ahead.
Yeah. So we're talking about this. I'm thinking about asking counsel, Craig, if you're on. And I know we're not a true public agency in some of the process, but, there is, I think, what's called, from other public boards I've sat on, a public contracting code. We have an RFP, and we have an RFP process we've gone through. My understanding of that process is we need to fulfill it, and if we don't select anybody, then we can reopen it. But to the respect of the people that provided those contracts, augmenting that RFP, I think, is not, or opening it back up. Maybe just ask that question. I'll stop there and then look for your counsel.
Yeah, I think right now the option is to move forward with the recommendation that's on the table. If there's some other proposal to interview all 7, we can do that. I think it needs to be, first of all, put it after the closed session, because there needs to be a discussion about a confidential issue with respect to that list before the board votes on it.
Thank you.
I don't necessarily, I may be missing something, but I don't necessarily think that the issue was in the narrowing down to the 4. Can someone from the advisory committee let me know if that it is an issue of the actual 4, and that we excluded somebody when we narrowed it down to 4?
John, do you know what the issue is?
About narrowing it down to 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there an issue with that part of it?
I have not heard a complaint about issuing it down to the 4. I heard some complaints about the decision that was made, but that doesn't bother me. So no, I did not hear anything about narrowing it down to 4.
By those picking those that we had, several different options there to choose from.
It was me, Kathy, that suggested that. And I was just surmising from this discussion that there may be an appearance of fairness because there wasn't clarity on the proposal. And in my mind, giving an opportunity for every single one of them, we're only talking about an additional 3 more, maybe that would have addressed the, John's and whoever else thought that lack of clarity may not have, or may have disadvantaged some of the proposers. That's why I brought.
Yeah, and just like I don't have any problem, but I was just curious if anyone wanted to speak up, and if that, was part of it, because we definitely have some differing opinions here, and we have to all 5 agree on something. So, of course, we need to throw out different ideas.
Wait a second. I think we've discussed this enough at this point, and our attorneys told us that we need a further discussion in closed session about another issue on this. So there's no action we can take until we do that. So what I would suggest is we go into closed session, have that discussion, and then we'll come back out in open session. And if we have the ability to make a decision, we will. And if we don't, we won't. But I think we've kind of gone far enough at the point. Is that okay? Board?
Rob, could I ask one more thing, please?
I'm sorry, who's that?
This is Derek. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one big question. You made a comment, Rob, that the advisory committee reviewed this and they okayed it, and now all of a sudden they've taken a strong position that they don't okay it. What happened between okaying it and now unanimously not okaying it? What happened? Somebody from the advisory committee, I would like them to tell me what happened between then and now.
Great. Good question, John. Thank you. Who can answer that from the advisory committee?
Jennifer, can I put you on the spot?
Sure. And unfortunately, I'm trying to coordinate with Stan. I was on maternity leave during that time. So I believe that there was some discussion of these issues. I don't know if it was necessarily documented in the advisory committee minutes, but it had been raised in some form. I just can't speak to exactly what at the moment. But
this is Stan Powell. My recollection is in reviewing those, one of the questions I do recall asking within the advisory committee was I felt it was not terribly clear whether we were asking for proposals for someone to take over Matt's role or to take over the entire admin process role. And the RFP left those 2 major options. And then responses come in from 7 parties. And there's a radical difference, I think, between a lot of those proposals where they are difficult to compare. It's hard to compare a proposal to fill Matt's role with a proposal to fill the entire admin role. And so I guess, Adam, and this is only my opinion, Adam, I think your comment about leaving it at 7 would be helpful because I'm just unsure how you do the comparison between the 7 if they have a radically different assumption. And keeping the pool of people that responded in the process to maybe clarify it and come closer to what the Watermaster really wants would be helpful. But I think a lot of what I'm not even sure I'd say change, because I had some concerns and raised this at the advisory committee, but certainly seeing the range of proposals gave me concerns and made it confusing how to compare different options. So hopefully that's somewhat responsive, John, to the question you raised, what changed? Thank you.
Yes.
That was helpful.
Thank you.
John, any other questions?
No.
Rob?
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
this
Yeah,
John
good.
Yukas. The ad hoc committee on the short list, that was after the advisory committee. So that meeting was after the advisory committee meeting.
John, I didn't get all that. Could you please say it again?
Okay. The ad hoc committee of John Clannery and Kathy was after the advisory committee when they created the short list.
Right.
So so I just want you to understand that. Okay.
Understood. Would John, what do you think about Stan's remark about if we interviewed all 7, that could potentially solve the issue the advisory committee has? And that was to John Yukas. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that might. I think I'd support that.
Okay, thank you, John.
Chair Perez, this is Dan Clifford. I'm on the advisory committee as well. I just wanted to add some additional color to this. I think that the primary issue was called out by I think Stan has articulated it well, which is the disparity in the bids. And in my mind, Director Amriki's solution addresses that issue because it gives the opportunity for clarifying questions and the provision of additional information.
Great. Thank you very much for the comment.
I have no problem looking at all 7 if that will give us consensus.
Okay, then that brings us to item 10, consideration, possible action on transfer application. And that will be Kate.
Yep. Good morning. This is Kate White from Tot Groundwater. How's my volume?
Your volume is great.
Great. So it's a hard act to follow, but we only have 2 transfer applications on the agenda today, so this should go relatively quick. And the advisory committee recommended approval of both applications. The first application starts on page 34 of the packet and borrows 300A40H is an Exhibit 4 party, and they would like to transfer 1 acre-foot per year of permanent production rights and 220 acre-feet of carryover water to 40 AA water holdings. The water will be used for the construction and subsequent maintenance and operations at a proposed solar facility. 40 AA is not a party to the judgment and will need to intervene. Barrows has the production rights and carryover water for this transfer. Their property is located in the West Antelope subarea near the High Desert Water Bank, and that's shown on Figure 1 in the packet, which is on page 35. And Barrows has not produced any water between 2016 and 2021. The 40 AA property is in the northeastern corner of the Rogers Lake subarea, so kind of kitty corner, the opposite side of the basin. And 4 wells will supply water to the solar facility. Construction is anticipated to occur between March 2023 and June 2024, and will use about 220 acre-feet of water during the 16-month period. After construction, they'll only need about a half an acre-foot per year for facility operations and maintenance. Figure 2, which is on page 36, shows hydrographs from the wells monitored by the USGS. Water levels in 2 wells near the 40 AA property have been stable in recent years. And these hydrographs are on the upper side of Figure 2 and the upper right side of Figure 2. Because this transfer results in a shift of location of water production within the basin, there is no material injury associated with groundwater storage and sustainable yield. There's no expected impact to local water quality or natural recharge associated with this transfer. And Todd groundwater finds the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment negligible, and we recommend approval of this transfer, provided 40AA Water Holdings successfully intervenes in the judgment. That's all I have for that one. Are there any questions on this one?
Are there any questions? And that's going to be on resolution R2230. Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2230?
I'll move to approve, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Seconded by Adam.
Second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote to approve resolution 2230.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandria,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Perez.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to 10 item B. And Kate?
The second transfer starts on page 59 of the packet. Radcast Investments would like to transfer 232.56 acre-feet per year of permanent production rights and 1,395.36 acre-feet of carryover water to Rosamond Community Services District. And this is part of a property sale. Radcast is a successor in interest to the original land div party and will be transferring all of its production rights and carryover water to Rosamond. Radcast is an Exhibit 4 party and Rosamond is an Exhibit 3 party. And both parties are in the Central Antelope Valley subarea. And RCSD will pump this water from its wells number 8 and 9. And they're about 4.6 miles north of the Radcat parcels. And this is shown on figure 1 in the packet, which is on page 62. Rosamond has been securing additional water sources to maintain its past production levels once Ratdown reaches its production rate of about 404 acre-feet per year in 2023. And I have a table on page 59 that shows Rosamond's past production and their Ratdown. Their average production is about 2,353 acre-feet per year. And by 2023, they will need about 1,950 acre-feet per year more water. And the bullets at the top of page 60 list additional sources of water that they have secured to date. And figure 1 shows spring 2021 groundwater elevation contours in the Radcast and RCSD parcels. And figure 2, which is on page 63 of the packet, shows water level hydrographs from wells monitored by the USGS in the vicinity of the RCSD well parcels. The hydrographs show that there does not appear to be a decreasing water level trend in the vicinity of the RCSD well parcels. And 2 of the hydrographs represent wells that are 1 mile away and like I think 2 miles away is that other well. So I tried to figure out how much water our CSE will need in the future and how much pumping these wells will do. And so I looked at their 2020 urban water management plan, and that indicates that its groundwater production may increase to about 2,880 by 2030 and to about 3,654 acre-feet per year by 2045. And the increase in current levels of about 2,400 acre-feet per year to 2,800 acre-feet per year, and that's kind of the estimated increase in pumping by those wells, by 2030 represents an increase of about 20% or about 2% per year. And then if you add up RCSD's production rights and acquired permanent production rights, including the ones that get from this transfer, that totals like 2,136 acre-feet per year. And that's about 264 acre-feet per year less than its current production levels. And so that means it'll need another 264 acre-feet per year to maintain current production levels. And that's what it will use the carryover water for. But it has about 8,000 acre-feet per year of carryover water. And so that will last them for quite a while. And that can also be used for their slight increase in pumping in the next 10 to 30 years. You know, and they also have other sources of water they can rely on, which is imported water, but, you know, that is kind of an unknown future source. And they have imported water return flows if they use imported water. And then they also have the future storage and recovery of treated wastewater from the upgraded wastewater treatment plant. And so because this transfer results in a shift of location of water production in the central Antelope Valley subarea, there is no material injury associated with groundwater storage and sustainable yield. There's no expected impact to local water quality or natural recharge. And this water will be used to maintain their current production levels into the future. And when you look at its urban water management plan, it looks like their production will increase about 2% per year between 2021 and 2030. There's not appear to be declining water level trends in the vicinity of RCSD wells. And this slight increase in production is not anticipated to cause material injury. So we recommend approval of this transfer. And we also note that with approval of this transfer, it seems that our CSD has enough groundwater supplies for the foreseeable future. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions on this one.
I have a question. This is Adam.
Adam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Craig. Is there a CEQA requirements as a result of this? Because when we do the urban water management plan or the integrated regional water management plan, and we identify, as a retail water agency, we identify a future needs, either there needs to be an identification in a CEQA tied up to this future development that the water is going to cover this demand, or there need to be a CEQA that needs to be done in conjunction with the transfer and purchase of these water supplies. So I'm not saying there is anything wrong with this transfer. These are good water supply planning strategies. I just don't want the board to be blindsided to requirements that maybe it needs to be done prior to us approving these transfers.
Yeah, we haven't in the past approached it from a CEQA analysis, Director Ariki. I mean, we can look at that, but I'd want to be up to speed on what the requirements are of CEQA and whether this is even within the purview of that. Did not look at it for that purpose.
I don't know. I wish I did.
Yeah, I think that would be something I can comment on next month. But my reaction is we haven't involved CEQA analysis in previous transfers involving public agency, and look at whether the Watermaster is the appropriate source to make that. To raise that issue at this point. I would just like to go back before opining publicly about CEQA's impact on this and make sure the question is clearly answered.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Adam. Craig, what's your advice on this transfer at this time? Do you see any?
Yes, subject to that, I had no problem with it.
The question is, you said subject to that. So
subject to the CEQA analysis question being answered, which I think can be pretty readily answered.
So should we carry this over till our next meeting, or can it be?
I would request that we put it over to the next to the June meeting.
Okay, and consensus of the board?
Yeah, I would feel a lot comfortable if we do so.
Yeah.
And like I said, it may not be an issue at all, but we need to put it to rest.
Okay. Any other comments by the board? Any other comments by the public? Okay, we will put item 10B over onto our next agenda. And we will also have, before we consider it, a presentation by Craig on how CEQUA will impact transfers to water in the future, if it will. Is that the right subject, Craig?
I think I'd like to answer it in terms of this specific transfer request and keep it narrow to that and answer the question so that the board can vote knowledgeably on the Rosamond transfer.
And if I may add, Craig, look at it in the context of the Urban Water Management Planning Act as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, Craig, would like a little broader than that because I don't want the board to get into an expense of having to go through this analysis with your time involved on
Understood.
Transfer.
Understood, and a good point. Make it broad enough so that it's of value for future applications that are in front of the board, and we don't have to recreate the wheel each time.
Okay, that would be great.
Shall do.
Mr. Chair, this is Steve Perez.
Steve Perez.
Steve Perez, you have a
comment?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is unprecedented, and I don't know why. Every time the Rosamond deals come up, Adam Ariki wants to throw a monkey wrench into every one of these. There's no material injury in this. It's already been stated. So what is the issue of CEQUA? CEQUA has not been done on this in the past on any of these transfers. So I don't understand why this is being held up for another month for that. It's unprecedented, it's unnecessary, and where do you see CEQA having to have an issue on this specific transfer? I'm going to lose this contract. Thank you very much, Adam.
Well, first of all,
Wait, Mr. Perez, this is a meeting. You asked to be heard, and Adam, the same thing, please. So, Mr. Perez, are you done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Adam, would you like to comment?
Well, I just wanted to let Mr. Perez know I have nothing against Rosamond Community Districts. And that's why I said I don't know if there is a CEQA requirements or not. I'm trying to do my job as a Watermaster Board member. And to the extent that I see ambiguity, whether it's Rosamond or anybody else, I'm going to bring it up. I'm sorry that you felt that way, because that's not my intent.
Thank you, Adam.
Well, may I respond?
Mr. Perez, go ahead.
It has not been done before. If you were doing your job, why weren't you doing it on other transfers? And talk is cheap when you're not doing this to impact. It's certainly every time I have an issue, you have a comment on it, but not the same comment on other transfers.
Yeah, so
wait. Mr. Perez, are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Adam, would you like to comment?
Yeah, the way what I'm coming at this from Rosamond Community District Services is a retail water agency. And then I know that the Urban Water Management Planning Act applies to any future water supplies. Now, typically when we do transfers, one, they are at a much smaller amount, and usually they are for other uses than development and use for future. So that was why I asked the question, not because I have anything against. In fact, if anything, when I stated my comment, I said this is a good water supply planning. And I still acknowledge that it is. We just want to make sure that it is done thoughtfully and based on law.
Thank you, Adam. And Craig, it is your recommendation we hold this over for that review. Is that correct?
I'd like that to happen.
Okay, thank you. If there's any other comments by the board? Any other comments by the public? Okay, Patty, this will be on the agenda for the next meeting, and the item regarding the CEQUA will go before it. Okay, thank you. We're now on item 11, discussion and consideration on resuming in-person meetings. Item A, consideration possible action on resuming in-person water board meetings. And then we have a resolution. Any discussion on this item? Board? My preference, as I read the Times every day and see the numbers increasing significantly on COVID infections, is that we continue to have the ability to have virtual meetings and do that until we're all at a point where we think it would be safe for all of us to be here. I do try to come to all these meetings live, and every now and then we get a few people here, but mostly it's staff, and I think that's the safest way to continue. That's my discussion. Any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion.
Well, I do. I'd like to speak up on this. Rob, this is Derek. I do value the opportunity to meet in person, to interact in a proper board setting in that manner. I do encourage the board and staff to continue to evaluate that, and for us to get back in person as soon as possible. I would say since my position on the board, I've not met once in a boardroom in person with the other board members or staff, and I look forward to that opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek. Any other comments?
This is Adam. My only comments is I don't think we'll ever get rid of COVID. We're back working, by the way, full time at work, and everybody's just either mask or either mask. It's up to you. I think we have enough therapeutics and vaccine and all that to mitigate. We know how to deal with it better today. Everybody knows that. So yes, I hear you, Rob. I think cases are going up, and I'm good prolonging it a little bit. But at one point, we may have to bite the bullet and just go back in person.
Yeah, and I do agree with that sentiment, Adam. I think soon we should make that attempt, but now it's just not the best time.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing no other comments, that brings us to item B, consideration and possible action.
Chairman, this is Craig Parton. There's a resolution to adopt. We're required every 30 days to evaluate this, and we'll be putting it as an agenda item each month to keep it in the discussion. There's resolution 2232.
I move to pass that resolution.
Yep, but that's exactly where I was going, Craig.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you skipped it. I'm sorry.
So, resolution R2232, there's a motion by Kathy to approve. Is there a second?
Second by John.
Second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion.
This is which resolution are we talking about here?
Yeah, this is item B on 11B. It's consideration and possible action on resolution number R2232, resolution proclaiming that a local emergency persists, re-ratifying the governor's proclamation of a state of emergency.
Got it.
Authorizing pursuant to the Brown Act.
Got it. Yes.
So,
thanks.
Motion's been made by Kathy, seconded. Who seconded that motion? I'm sorry.
John.
John. Any?
It's the only non-controversial thing I've done today.
And the only other thing I would ask is that Craig, would it be okay to put this on the consent agenda? Some of the other boards I'm on do that in the future. Is that something we can do?
We can do it on the consent. We just need to do it at every board meeting.
Correct. So Patty, in the future, put it on the consent agenda. Okay, item B. Yes, motion to approve resolution number R22 has been made by Kathy, second by John. All in favor of the motion by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Perez.
Yes, motion is carried unanimously. That brings us to item 12, consideration and possible action on formation of sub-area advisory management committee. And Matt, is that you?
Actually, Craig prepared a memo on this, so I'll have him introduce that.
Yeah, the page 111 is a short memo. The board asked us as council to analyze this issue that's raised in paragraph 19.5 of the judgment about the creation of sub-area advisory management committees. And the memo points out that it's clear in the judgment that it was expected to happen. The rules and regulations adopted and approved by the court indicate that there's current opportunities for input to the board via the advisory committee and public comment. And we also got comments from the public and the advisory committee that we want to be careful about unnecessarily creating bureaucratic procedures that don't advance the health and security of the water conditions in the basin or advance the goals of the Watermaster. But the judgment spells it out clearly what the process is to elect representatives from each of the 5 management areas, expects that to be done, and we want to be in compliance with the judgment. So the discussion for the board is whether to encourage that elections go forward and that process spelled out in the judgment is followed. If the board believes instead that there are adequate mechanisms existing now that are being utilized to get input from the public and the management areas and sufficient interplay between the members of the advisory committee and people from those management areas and the Watermaster engineer are sufficient and robust as they exist today, that we would want to petition the court and bring a motion before the court, advising the court, I should say, that we believe we're fulfilling the intentions of section 19.5 through what we're doing and spell out what we're doing, and that we have a placeholder in the rules and regulations to bring this and form these sub-area management committees in the future should the need specifically arise. So we're leaving it at this point for the board to discuss, and the options are spelled out, whether we go down the 19.5 route. If the board is inclined to want to form the sub-area management committees according to the judgment, there's really no motion or resolution to be passed, because the Watermaster judgment and physical solution already anticipates that and assumes that those committees are being formed. So if the inclination of the board is to permit and encourage the formation of the area management subcommittee areas, they really should put it on the agenda for next month to have an update about where the election process is for each of the sub areas. And conversely, if you believe that there's enough process already in place, we would ask for direction from the board and a vote from the board that legal counsel approach the court to inform the court of what the situation is in terms of compliance with 19.5 and advise the court that's how we're operating, and that we don't want to be in violation of the terms of the judgment, and ask the court's counsel and comment on our position. So that's the memo on those 3 pages, and that's the basic issue for the board to discuss. And as I mentioned, we've had a couple of months where we've discussed in general what the options are, and the advisory committee has weighed in a couple of times on the issue, but it's for board discussion and consideration on how it wants to respond in light of the fact that we have not yet to date created the sub-area advisory management committees.
Thank you, Craig. Board, your pleasure. Comments?
So this is Derek.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry if I think I jumped over Adam, but I guess I was the one that brought this up last board meeting, or discussed it a couple of board meetings ago. So maybe I should take the first hits or first thoughts on it. So we did have an opportunity to discuss this in the admin committee meeting, and reviewed it with Craig, who gave the same explanation. I do agree with the memo that there's 2 directions for this board to take. I did listen to the advisory committee talk about it, as well as our discussion with during the admin meeting. And so I'm supportive of option 2 modified in the midst of, I think that, I've heard from both the engineer and the advisory committee, and, from landowners, as well as, to have a semi-annual meeting that does go over those sub areas and discuss it with the engineer, and use the advisory committee as that process, and invite, the public to sit in there and construct those conversations. And I would be comfortable, I'd support that thought and bring it to the board of modifying and going to the court to ask for their, our recommendation and their opinion of what that looks like based upon that structure.
Great. Thank you, Derek. And Adam, did you have a comment?
I think Derek kind of summarized what we discussed and how we see this. I think I see a value in it, but we should do it in the least expensive and the least bureaucratic fashion.
Great. Kathy or John, anything?
I'm going to ask Derek to please explain in short term what his recommendation was. What did you think we should do about the sub areas?
Derek?
So, yeah, I'll try to recap what I said, maybe a little clearer. My recommendation is that we set up the semi-annual meetings that are part of the judgment. Instead of creating the 5 sub-basin committees, we actually use the advisory committee as a process, and that we then make sure we invite any of the public that wants to attend those meetings, making it known that, twice a year there's going to be the engineer at the meeting, and this is the point of what will be reviewed at the advisory committee meeting. So if any of those, people want to attend, they're aware of that meeting and, the uniqueness of it twice a year.
Okay. And it would help both the Watermaster engineer meet with the advisory committee and the sub-area folks.
That's right. That's the process that any of those sub areas who come in and discuss their sub area region. You're right, Adam.
But you're not proposing a sub area committee of 5.
I am that my thought and what I am not proposing that. No, sir.
Okay. Basically, the existing people in their positions of advisory board, engineer, and Watermaster Board would continue to monitor it, basically like the rules and regulations state in 6A.
My only modification of that, John, is that isn't being taken place. There is an annual or semi-annual meeting with the engineer that comes in and discuss these topics. So I'd like to make sure that was clear in the process. That was, not the only agenda for that month, twice a year meeting, but that was a key part of the agenda.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Okay. And Craig, can we adopt Derek's recommendation by consensus, or do we need to vote on it?
I because it's not compliance.
Right.
I don't mean this derogatorily, but it's not compliance with the terms of the judgment. I would like the board to be very clear what it's approving, that it believes is substantial compliance with the goals of section 19.5. And I would like to prepare those bullet points, a one-page kind of summary of what is being proposed, so it's very clear what the board voted on.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Let's kick this over to the administrative committee to meet with you to do that. And then at our next meeting, we'll put this back on the agenda with an action item based upon the administrative committee recommendation. Would that be okay with everyone?
The only hesitation I have about that, Mr. Chairman, is I'd want to get advisory committee input on it, and so the answer is yes. We may have to revise the date of our administrative committee and make it earlier so that we consider the document and then get it to the advisory committee for reflection and comment.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that completely. So, Matt, are we able to have an administrative committee meeting in time to send recommendations to advisory committee in time to have it on the agenda for our next meeting?
Yeah, we can do that. We can have a special meeting in early June.
Perfect.
Great.
Okay. Good. That should bring us to item 13, consideration possible action to accept and file the replacement water plan submitted by the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association, which satisfies the Watermaster's replacement water responsibilities for replacement water assessments collected as of April 15th, 2022, and that's going to be Matt.
Yeah, actually, I'll turn this over to Peter Thompson because he's currently the general manager for the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association, and he put together the plan being considered today.
Thanks, Peter. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So for you on page 115 is the beginning of the plan, and that first table lays out where the pumping occurred, times it occurred, and the associated assessment fees with that over pumping. If you move to page 116, you'll see the table that lays out which agency will be replacing the water and where the replacement water fees will go between those agencies, and also indicates the site where the deductions for the replacement water will take place, and those can be seen graphically on the next page, 117, which outlays where the pumping occurred as well as where the deductions will occur. On the left side, Avac's deductions will come from the west side, water bank. And if you look on the right bottom corner of that map, you'll see the State Water Project recharge site. And that's where Palmdale Water District's and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District's deductions will be made. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you or the rest of the board may have.
Questions from the board?
I just have a question for both Katie maybe and Peter. At one point, maybe not now, in the future, are we going to assess where there is substantial amount of water that was extracted by Phelan Pinion Hills? Does it make a difference, if we replace the water at Avac banks? I mean, I understand the practicality of it. And here it was, being pumped in the east side or the southeast. Is there going to be a deleterious impact to the groundwater basin? And either one of you can comment on this. And maybe the model can help us with that at one point in the future. Maybe.
Adam, I can take this. This is Kate. So Phelan hasn't actually pumped that much recently. I think in the last 3 years, I think their average production is like 96.44 acre-feet per year for those for that well they have in our basin. And in 2021, it was like 119.5. And there is recharge occurring in that sub-area from the state water contractor recharge basins. And so they did allocate some of that recharge, actually more than what Phelan pumped, to that sub-basin. So that seems
okay.
So that seems like that's kind of taken care of. But this is a good point for me to say that, we're working on the annual report right now, and we're looking at storage changes in each of the sub-areas. Mm-hmm. And we are concerned about declining water levels in the southeast sub-area. And we don't have a lot of information in that sub-area because I'm not a geologist and I can't explain this well. If Phil was here, she could do a much better job at it. But I think that there's shallow groundwater and bedrock highs in that area. And so that's just something we want to look at. And maybe the model can help us look at that in the future and look at recharge there and extraction. And Mike, I don't know if you can add anything to that. Mike's just starting to kind of get the model up to speed. Mike, is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I will say, I think one of the objectives is for the model to be able to answer these kind of regional kind of questions like this. It's one thing to do fit well in occurrence locally, but this is kind of a bigger regional. So, that is one of the objectives for these model updates is to be able to address these questions.
Mm-hmm. When do you think this model is going to be ready for prime time?
I'll go ahead and give my update on that. So we're working through the kind of the data aspects of it, both getting the pumping and all the transfers and looking at the recharge. So that's some challenges in that. We want to get that finalized. Once we get that, we're going to go through it and get it up and running and validate it. And really the next part is to validate it and make sure it's operating the way we intend. It looks like we were probably now we're looking more at July. We're kind of looking at June, but I think with some of the data things, we kind of lost a little bit of time, and we're kind of targeting that time frame.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. And I just had one comment, and Peter might weigh in on this. The Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association has been looking at the potential of doing water storage around the Big Rock Creek. I'm not sure, but I would think that's pretty close to the southeast.
Yes. In fact, the site that's shown was the test pilot site for that Big Rock Creek.
Yeah, so that's right in that sub area. So maybe we could get Kate and Mike to weigh in on our discussions about that. That might be helpful for all the boards to go forward with, considering that that would be a good site for us to bank water based upon the comments I just heard from Kate.
It sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah. Kate, were you aware that we've been testing over the last 2 years and looking, or maybe 3 years, looking at doing a water bank out in the area of Big Rock Creek, which would be around 165th Street East and Pear Blossom Highway south of that area?
We have it in our, it's listed in our Appendix C and annual reports as a potential future bank
Okay. We would like, if possible, for you to weigh in if that would be something that you would encourage or not, but based upon your last comment, it would seem that would be a good place to do some banking.
Yes, I'm going to defer to Phyllis on this. She may have, she probably has some strong opinions on making sure, because since it's a creek, and she would be concerned about making sure that the water actually is getting down into the basin.
Yeah, now that would be very helpful. We would like to get that input. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any action we have to take on this here?
Would look for a board vote to adopt this plan.
One question for Peter, and then I leave that. Peter, like at one point, if we get to the point where hydrogeologically it's more advantageous to the basin if more water is put at this particular water bank that we're talking about in the east side that Palmdale Water District is leading, would that be possible to proportion the recharge among the three state water project contractor, not based on allocation, but based on where the biggest bang for the buck is? Is that's something possible, right?
Well, I would just comment that with the state water contractors developed an agreement for how they would divide up the requests for replacement water. And among all those agencies, we're working on a variety of banking options. Mm-hmm. So we hope that we'll be able to utilize those diverse banking options to provide replacement water in an appropriate place between the three of us. So,
right. There is no fixed ratio, right?
There is a fixed ratio for any pumping that occurs outside of our collective boundaries, and that's based on our state water project applications. But anything that occurs inside our boundaries is the responsibility of that agency. So Avac is providing all the replacement water for Antelope Valley Union and La Cosepa Church.
I see.
That's how it would continue to go forward.
Within its service area.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Within AVAC service area, the replacement comes from AVAC, and same thing for Palmdale on LCID, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Okay, any other questions, concerns? If not, is there a motion to adopt the replacement water plan submitted by the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association for their memorandum on page 115 and 116 of our agenda and board packet?
I will move that we approve the plan for replacement water.
Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
This is Derek. I'll second it.
Thank you, Derek. Motion made by Adam, second by Derek. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director Urosic?
Yes.
Director Perez?
Yes. Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us to the administrator's report.
All right. Good morning. This is Matt. So just a couple items to update the board on. The first one being our 2022 landowner representative and alternate election process. At the last meeting, I reported that Director Calandri's seat is up in September of this year. So we need to start the election process for both his seat and the alternates, which are elected at each cycle. The city of Palmdale has agreed to act as the inspector of elections. So during the month of June, we'll get started with sending out the request for nominations to all Exhibit 4 parties. And then the second item is just an update that we have sent out all the 2022 variable administrative assessment invoices, and those payments are slowly coming in. So that's all I have to report unless you have any questions.
Any questions on that?
Thanks.
Thank you.
On to the Watermaster Engineers report. Kate?
Hi, this is Kate again. On page 120 of the packet is a summary of approved new production and qualified small pumpers. And this is, and so there are no new production parties approved at the April board meeting. And the temporary 215 acre-feet per year approved for Mr. Bannock, it has expired. And so the total approved decreased by 215 acre-feet per year to 478.64 acre-feet per year for new production. And there are no qualified small pumpers approved at the April board meeting, so that total of 267 acre-feet per year remains the same. Are there any questions on this table?
How, just out of curiosity, how does Mr. Bennett knows that? I know when the approval was issued, that was a condition in there. But how do we know that he knows that it is expired?
He had asked for an extension, so he knew it was expiring at the end of 2021, because it was approved for 2020 and 2021, and the I think it was a solar facility that he was supplying to hadn't finished construction. There were delays, I think, because of COVID. And so he had asked for an extension. And he asked for an extension, I think, through April. So I think he's aware of that, that it expired at the end of April. And we gave him that extension.
Okay. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you, Kate.
Welcome.
Brings us to the General Counsel's report, right?
Yeah, that is consumed in the closed session with the board. Nothing to report. It'll all be discussed in closed session.
Great. And board members, any future requests for agenda items? Other than the ones we
already added. Yeah, so there is the support letter, or the not support letter, but thank you letter to the various agencies that.
We have the CEQUA, the letter, and the Rosamond transfer.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments? If none, we do need a closed session. So, is there a motion for the board to go into closed session?
I'll make that motion. This is Derek.
By Derek, is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session by roll call vote?
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Klein?
Yes.
Director Urasic?
Yes.
Director Perez?
Yes. Motion's carried unanimously. We will go into closed session in 5 minutes. At 11:45, we will be in closed session.
All right.
We should stay on the line.
And please stay on the line. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But stay on the line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or ask him to.
Well, would it be too much, Wes? Wes, would you mind making in the lobby? Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good meeting. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah. All right. He's one of the applicants. Oh. He's with the project partners. Oh.
Recording stopped.
enforcement actions as to Rancho Sierra Golf Course with the court, as to Rancho Sierra Golf Course in Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District.
Thank you. And then we're going to go back to item 9, Administrative Proposal Ad Hoc Committee Report. We're on item C. Actually,
It'd be 9B.
9B, consideration and possible action on recommended list of candidates to interview. Is there any further discussion on this? I'll just give a quick summary of what I heard. There's been some recommendations that we interview all the candidates. We've heard from some members of the advisory committee that I believe John Ukestat and Stan Powell that would be a good thing to do, and that they would be in support of that. And that's where we're at right now. Is there discussion with the board?
Okay, I'm going to speak. As I've spoken on earlier, at this point, I'm kind of a no vote because of the advisory committee's advice. I'm trying everything in my power to try to come up with a yes. I want to know if this is something that would be acceptable to everybody. I believe there's some errors. Would it be possible for the advisory board to send out a quick letter to everybody that was on the mailing list saying there was a little bit of ambiguity, clear that up, open up the period where people could submit for maybe a 2-week period after they read that the ambiguities were clear, open it up for about 2 more weeks, close it, and then go with what we have.
I'll let Matt respond to that.
Yeah, so good morning, this is Matt. So that, as you know, the RFP process was very open. So that RFP was sent out to the list of individuals on the pre-approved list. During that period, it was free for anyone wishing to propose to ask questions. If there were things in the RFP that were not clear, they had the right to give me a call or send me an email and ask those questions. A few individuals did, but no questions warranted revising or amending the RFP and sending it back out for clarification to everybody. So I'm not sure. I mean, my recommendation is we're not going to gain anything by sending this back out.
And I think also, Matt, if assuming that our council says, yeah, you can send an addendum, as John stated,
yeah,
which is kind of, maybe not a time-consuming thing. John, thank you. But I think you're going to have to send that addendum to every person that you send the RFP to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm personally concerned now that all the 7 proposals we got are now public, and they've each had opportunity to review those.
Yes.
And now they're going to revise their proposal.
Yes.
To make it look better against the others. I don't think that's a fair process. So.
I agree with you. I don't even think that would be legally appropriate. I mean, Craig can comment on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't send that email.
Thank you. John, I have a comment. We talked to Stan Powell, we talked to John Ukestat. There was nobody else in the advisory committee that commented about what action we should take. Both of them accepted interviewing everybody, and that would be a compromise that they would be fine with. So
that's what I heard.
Yeah. So I don't know what your objection still is, that we can't go forward unless you can identify who on the advisory committee you're concerned about and maybe get them to weigh in. But We've had a long discussion on this. This will create issues for us if we don't go forward. I've explained Avac's position. You've explained the advisory committee's position, but that's why we had that full discussion with those from the advisory committee that was here. So going forward with interviewing all candidates seemed to be a consensus compromise that would work for everybody. And that would not hold us up and would not create problems with the RFP and other candidates. So I would just highly recommend that we adopt that compromise and go forward.
And if I may just add one little thing, and maybe Craig can opine on this, we could maybe have some of the question addressing John's concern of inequity during the interview process. Is that something, because those questions are going to be asked of all the 7 or 6 or how many that we interview. Craig, is that something that
anything goes in the interview process, and it's an open session. I think we should remind everyone this is not closed session interviews.
Right.
This is open for everybody. It's fair game, and probably more than one, probably 2 or 3 interviews in public. And the public is going to be invited to ask anything they want, and there's nothing out of bounds.
What do you think, John? Is that something that you think will make you feel more comfortable, given what Director Perez said?
I guess what I'm thinking is, I think we made some mistakes on the RFP, and when there's something of this magnitude, it's very easy to do that. I thought my suggestion for just sending out a quick letter to everybody, opening it up for a 2-week period, said, okay, hey, we admitted some mistakes, and here's how we're going to correct it. And if anybody wants to join the 7, you got 2 weeks to do it. I thought that was fair. I'm not going to hang up the board, but I just felt that was the right thing to do.
I think it is. Just the logistics of it and the legality of it will necessitate that we go with a completely new proposal out of fairness to everybody, which would definitely take 2 to 3 months.
Well, that would take too long.
Yeah.
And this is Derek. I just comment, John. I appreciate you wanting to try to find fairness, but I think to the 7 that submitted their RFP, and now anybody else can open it back up and use that as a template to work from. I question the fairness, and on top of that, as studied before, the legality of that.
Yeah, that's the fact that it's public now. Would make anything going forward unfair. I see that.
Okay, good. All right. Discussion, board. I think the consensus view is that we adopt a motion to interview all qualified candidates, and that brings up another subject that came up in closed session that is a reportable item that I'll let our attorney discuss.
Yes, there was discussion about the enforcement action against Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District. Raises the issue of a conflict with one of the interviewees, Mr. Weisenberger, who's number 4 on the list. And because of the conflict that would be present in the Watermaster being adverse to the Resource Conservation District impending litigation, the board wants to move to eliminate Mr. Weisenberger from the interview list.
Okay. Thank you for that announcement. And at this point, I believe that there's a consensus for a motion to approve that we interview all 6 of the now eligible applicants for the Watermaster Administrator, which would include Bondi Groundwater Consulting, Duke Engineering, Hallmark Group, Project Partners, RSC Consulting Group, and Regional Government Services. Is there a motion to go forward with the interview process? Or Matt, how would you recommend we do that? Is it just go forward with, or do you want more of a process?
Yeah, I think we need to talk more process, but I think that you're on the right track. The first step is get a consensus to move forward with those 6 applicants.
Okay.
And then the next item on the agenda is talk about scheduling and process.
So this would be 9 item B. Is there a motion that we go forward with the the list of candidates that have submitted that are eligible, except for the conflict noted?
This is Adam. I move that we go with the list of the 6 candidates forward.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Derek. I'll second that.
Motion made by Adam, second by Derek. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Perez.
Yes, motion is carried unanimously. Now we're on item C, 9C, consideration possible action on scheduling interviews for Watermaster Administrator. Matt?
Yep. So thank you. So I'll give you my thoughts on how I envision the process going. At the advisory committee, or maybe it was the ad hoc committee, we talked about kind of a 2-step interview process, having the advisory committee conduct their own interview process, and then the Watermaster Board conduct a subsequent interview process. But being that the interviews are going to be fully open, I'm recommending just having interviews with the full Watermaster Board and the public, and maybe the advisory could develop some process to where they could ask follow-up questions during the interviews. So that's my recommendation. Also recommend that we schedule a special meeting in kind of mid-June timeframe, just so we're not conducting the interviews with our normal business. We focus on just the interviews at a special meeting, as mentioned, proposing mid-June. And then as far as interview questions, when we interviewed the Watermaster engineer, it was we left it up to the administrator and staff to develop the questions, just so the questions weren't floating around prior to the interview. So I'm proposing this kind of similar process to where the board can give direction to staff to come up with a list of predetermined questions that we ask all 6 applicants. And so that's kind of my recommendation moving forward.
And you think we can get all interviews done at one meeting?
We can't hear you, Mr. Perez.
Oh, I'm sorry. You think we can get all interviews done at one special meeting?
It would be a long meeting, but we'd have to schedule maybe 45 minutes per interview and a few minutes in between each one.
Okay. I like that recommendation. So the recommendation is that we call a special meeting mid-June for just interviews of the 6 applicants
with full board
approved by the full board, and that the advisory committee be invited to participate in that interview process at the same time.
Yep, and staff will develop a list of questions.
Okay, so that's the essence of the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm good with the approach. I would like to put some limitation to the questions from the advisory committee, only because of interest of time. In other words, we either give them fixed amount of minutes to ask their questions, or they can ask 2 or 3 questions and they need to be the same. In other words, there need to be structure to how they are going to ask the questions, and the question need to be the same and all that.
Yeah, I agree with that, Adam, and we will work that into the process. Do you have time to meet with the ad hoc committee on finalizing the final process and the questions? Just the ad hoc committee that selected the candidates, that'd be Kathy and John.
Yeah, we can do that. Just a reminder that those meetings are public. So,
I see.
Anybody could call into that meeting.
Yeah. So maybe you take care of the questions and the ad hoc committee will, I just want
talk through the process.
Agree on the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll also work with the advisory committee chair to make sure the advisory committee is clear on what their role in the process is.
Perfect. Okay.
Please
So, is there further discussion, John?
Yeah, so we're going to be developing the questions to ask them.
No, the staff will develop the questions to ask the administrator.
I think there should be another short list because this has been such I believe it's still ambiguous. It was hard for me to vote yes. You know how hard it was.
Right.
I think there should be a short list of maybe 5 or 6 questions that they should ask us. Here's a list of questions you should ask us that may be ambiguous. You follow me? How much, how much time's involved? I don't think we should just be asking them questions. I think they should have a list of things that we should, or either we explain to them thoroughly, or we give them a list of questions that they might want to ask us.
Yeah, typically,
how much time did Inga put? How much time did Matt put in? How much time did Patty put in? That's a question they should ask, and that's a question we should tell them they should.
Typically,
this is a big deal.
Yeah, in interview like this, you always give the interviewee an opportunity at the end to ask questions.
I realize that.
Yeah,
that would be their opportunity to do so.
Yeah, John, and I agree with you. I think Matt and Peter can put together a introduction to all the candidates that would cover those points, and we'll work on that and present that to us.
Well, that would definitely help the flavor in my mouth that I voted yes. So they could
whatever will help, we will do. And if you want to consult with Matt exactly what you envision, that would be great.
Yep.
So I think we have a motion. We need a motion.
I think I proposed the motion, and we were doing the
motion made by Adam, second by Gary. That
we voted already.
Well, that was on the other.
No,
that was on the list.
That was on the list, John.
Then I didn't make the motion. I'm sorry, Chair.
Okay, so I'm confused too.
Yeah.
So we do need a motion to go forward
with the process.
With the process of interviewing the candidates. And would June 15th work out for everybody? That's Wednesday, middle of June.
I'm traveling.
I'm unavailable. This is Derek as well.
I'm available for about 10 days after that. That's been a trip that I've postponed 3 times that I don't want to postpone again.
Understood. So what period of time are you traveling, John?
I'm 15 through the 23rd.
How about the 11th?
I'm good I'm good 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Want to try Wednesday the 8th?
I'm open then.
The 8th, okay.
Will that give us enough time?
I mean, we'll notify the applicants immediately, be prepared for the June 8th, and then we'll work on the questions and having that.
When's our regular Watermaster Board meeting?
22nd.
22nd. Yeah.
Can we do? You want to do the 13th or 14th?
I'm not available, but I am available on the 8th.
All right, 8th was good for me.
Or we could allow ourselves a little bit more time and shoot for the 29th of June.
Yeah, but I think we should wrap this up by the next board meeting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. The 8th it is. So we have a motion, or we need a motion to go forward with the interview process of the 6 eligible applicants. That will include there'll be a special meeting including the Watermaster Board and the Advisory Board. And questions will be, the staff will come up with the questions that will be asked, and we will interview everyone on that same day. And then I'm not sure we'll be able to select that on that day, but at least we'll have the interviews done.
Committee to talk about it
And
after.
put it into our next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the motion. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll move that, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second by Adam. Oh, sorry, John.
I think John should second that motion, Adam. Second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Perez.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Next meeting is going to be a special meeting on Wednesday, June 8th. And somebody's going to get out that invite like today. Yeah. And then our regular meeting is going to be on the 22nd. And very good meeting, everyone. That's how meetings are supposed to go, with give and take. And I know that every one of you worked really hard to get to this consensus, so thank you. And at this point, the meeting's adjourned. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll have we'll kind of think through the timing.